Welcome again to another episode of the War Room with PMAC. I am you, that's PMAC, and let's get it in. We're talking about off-season strategies and something else. I have to get this little this pre-made speech down, but we're talking off-season strategies and ideas for the Chiefs to implement in an effort to hopefully get a three-peat. Hopefully. But we'll see what happens. What's going on, Phil?
What's going on, man? And everybody, like this says, man, welcome to another special episode of the War Room with PMAC presented by Chiefs Focus. Thank you to my co-host, Thiz. And like he said, we're going to talk about situations going on with the team, especially involving with us trying to go for the three-peat, probably doing something no NFL team has ever done, and is winning three straight championships. That would put us on the level of 90s Bulls, or you could say 2000s Lakers level of greatness, and that's amazing. And I can't wait to get started on that. But before we start, man, unfortunately, we had a situation that happened about last 2 weeks ago, and I wanted to give a shout out and also dedicate this episode to Lisa Lopez Galvin, who lost her life on that day, and also to the 22 victims that were affected in that situation. And I thank God for their recovery. It affected me, and needed to take time away from the city. And to get away, I went to Dallas, Texas last week to witness my older brother, David Malcolm Magruder, executive pastor of Friendship West Baptist, also Kansas City, Kansas, Wyandotte County native. He got married to his bride, Toya Smith, now Magruder. Now, shout out to David and Toya. It was a great ceremony, and got away from all the hoopla and everything. So that's just mention there, man. So yeah. I'm sorry, everybody, if you might hear my voice the way it sounds. Kind of sounds like a little hoarse, or like I'm losing my voice a little bit. But just been going through a lot of stuff, taking care of a lot of business, especially just getting back from Texas. I drove 5 hours from Oklahoma City to Kansas City, and it was 5 hours, 355 miles. So
That's what's up, man.
yeah.
Well, shoot. Well, let's get on into it. So the first segment you wanted to talk about is what everybody's talking about. Everybody's talking about it. It's whether we should keep Sneed, let Chris walk, let Chris stay, let Sneed will go, or whether we should try to keep them both or let them both go. Like nobody knows what Veach is thinking, but we know exactly what Veach tends to think. But we saw exactly how Chris Jones was the most important guy on the field last season on defense. We did all right without him. But that also came in a loss. Let's make that clear. We did all right without him, but it came in a loss to the Detroit Lions. But when he got back on the field, he was the most important guy. And without him, we wouldn't have got Brock Purdy out of his position, and that one throw to I think it was Debo might have gotten that could have won the game for them.
It was Debo. It was Debo.
Yeah, that one throw.
It's like the Jimmy Garoppolo play from Super Bowl 54 when he threw it deep to Emmanuel Sanders, man. I'm like, wow. History repeats itself, huh?
Precisely. And without Chris Jones, that play is probably completed. Yeah. And but either way. So the question is, should they stay or should they go? And let's talk about it, man.
All right. Well, we all know the Chiefs' defense was one of the best units in the NFL this season, highlighted by the play of L'Jarius Sneed and Big Chris, the CEO of Sack Nation. Both players are going to be free agents in a month, are almost close to March as it's coming in the new league year coming up. And the Chiefs will likely need to have both you need both of them to try to make this three-peat. That's just really the truth in the matter of it all, man. And of course, we all know the business side of the NFL, how everything goes. If you can't do that, you got to have a plan B if plan A doesn't work, or a plan C if plan B doesn't work. Like the Kendrick Lamar song, Real, where he's talking about plan A, plan B, and plan C. So anyway, the Chiefs have 22 $0.8 million, or you could just say $23 million available in
Mhm.
cap space as of right now. Excuse me. But because of this news that just happened, as just came out last week, the NFL has increased the salary cap numbers, and it's all thanks to Taylor Swift and her coming and to be a part of Chiefs Kingdom. Got everybody paid. Everybody gets an extra $30 million in their cap space room. All 32 teams, not just the Chiefs, but all the other 31 teams. So Veach will have to get creative if he wants to get more room. Let's just say that the number still stays the same and it hasn't been activated yet. Still working on trying to make room. And Jones already said at the parade that he'll be back, but the Chiefs have to make that happen first. So when you
I
look at it,
actually forgot to talk about it in the news about
okay.
that, but we'll talk about it. Go ahead.
But yeah. But I was just saying, man, like a potential Chris Jones absence will leave a big 315-pound hole in the middle of the Chiefs defensive front, man. I mean, first team all pro in 2023. Jones was arguably the best pass rushing defensive tackle in football this past season, finishing with 75 pressures, 10.5 sacks after finishing just last year with 77 pressures and 15.5 sacks and finishing third in the defense. Actually, finishing runner up behind Nick Bosa for defensive player of the year last year, man. And he is very important, and it would be very hard to replace that productivity of that 8-year guy, man, with a single
Mhm.
draft pick. And if they can't afford to pay Chris, man, like the Chiefs should address this hole by using an early pick on a defensive tackle who has the tools to, two gap and control the inside of the defensive front, or look for other options. And we could talk about this guy a little later, who I think the Chiefs should look at. But personally, like they need to make something happen when it comes to Chris and try to bring him back. Because even my mom even said it when we were talking about this idea of Chris coming back, and I think it was even before the Super Bowl. Actually, it was around the first episode when we put it out there. She said the Chiefs need to do something to make Chris Jones a Chief for life, so he can retire a Chief. And this is all part of like why I believe they got to find a way to keep him. So, and one of
I
the guys,
actually
go ahead. Go ahead.
I actually believe that they do want to keep and make him a chief for life. I do believe that.
Yes, sir.
I also believe what I told you earlier, as far as being, him being one of the reasons why Brock Purdy wasn't allowed to make that throw.
You don't like Brock Purdy, bro.
No, what I'm saying is Chris Jones was in his face, and so he had
Right,
to
right, right,
throw. So that was the only reason that my thoughts
right.
about Brock Purdy, neither here nor there.
I
But
just had
let's delve into if we decide to keep Jones and let Sneed walk.
right. I'm gonna just tell you to be honest with you. I really think if it was really had to come down to it, I think they would probably keep Sneed because he would be cheaper compared to Chris and what
But
Chris is
I,
asking.
I
That's just
understand that. But let's go with Chris stays and Sneed walks right first. Look,
okay.
because that's the big name right there, and a lot of people would rather that than the other one. So let's talk about that one first.
Okay. Well, when it comes, let's say if Snead doesn't come back, we bring back Chris. Well, this is a scenario that I have right here. I can see the Chiefs not going after a free agent corner. I mean, Beach has done a very good job by drafting these cornerbacks, especially like over the last 2 seasons. I mean, you've drafted uh McDuffie, who, in one of the Chiefs focus articles before the draft, I was singing his praises like, you need to get this guy. You got serious about building the defense. That's the guy you put on to build your defense up. And then you added Jalen Watson and also Joshua Williams, who was pretty much the best defensive player in all the HBCU coming out in 2022. And then you add Nick Jones in 2023, and then add Iko Boydo, undrafted rookie free agent, who's actually your probably showed he was your best special teamer at the end of the year, even though Jack Cochran was the team's best special teams player overall. Boydo showed you, and it shows you the value of what Beach does when he finds those corners, no matter what round, even if they're undrafted. He found Charvarius Ward, bro.
He did.
Like, come on now. Like, nobody wanted Charvarius. Even Jerry's like, go ahead, you can have him. And then I know Jerry is hitting himself every time, like, dang it. And if I kept him, wow, I could have had Gilmore, Ward, Bland, and Trayvon Diggs.
Yep.
So yeah, so anyway, when you look at that, I think the Chiefs will probably look into the draft, and we don't have one of the images of the guys as one of our graphics here, but one of the corners I would look at in the draft, for example, let's say third round, Cam Hart from Notre Dame. That's just one of those names that I'm mentioning out here to you guys who's not a graphic on here today. We didn't have that. We didn't have the time to put it out there, but now with this aspect of it, Cam Hart, he's 6'3", he's 200 pounds. He is like your typical big corner, like the Richard Sherman, even the size of Jalen Watson. And I really think he's everything that the Chiefs want, and he could be like that big pick guy and everything. And yeah, man, my cousin, man, he just showing me something that's really awesome, man. Some interesting stuff about the Chiefs. But anyway, like Cam is like a prototypical big corner, like Brandon Brown or big, and that is the type of guy the Chiefs need. And if you look at it too, he brings competition to Watson and Williams in their room because, of course, with Sneed and McDuffie, everybody had question marks about Watson, even though Watson since week 9 hadn't allowed a touchdown since that span, and he's played like actually one of the top 5. Actually, make
Mm-hmm.
it look like Watson and Sneed and McDuffie are probably the best trio in the NFL, but Cam does bring that to the room, and also it'll also push Shamari Connor, who's also going to be a subject of a topic in the next segment. He was probably drafted to be the in-house replacement for L'Jarius Sneed, as I mentioned last week, I believe, and actually not last week, but in the last episode, that that's what he can do. And Shamari showed you, man, he's a dog. Like,
Yeah, and he can be that hybrid safety. He could be a safety slash corner.
safety slash slot corner,
And that's normally where I like to get my
like Kendall Fuller did.
absolutely.
And they
But
both from Virginia Tech.
if we're talking about Jones stays and Snead goes, you're
Mhm.
talking about hoping that Chris Jones maybe takes a little bit less to stick around.
Right.
And if he does go market value, you got to figure out some wizardry with the cap numbers. You don't
Right.
want void years, otherwise you end up being a Brandon Graham situation with the Eagles, and you don't really
Right.
want that. You don't really want that. So you're talking about probably $31 to $32 million APY average
Right.
per year for those that don't know. And he anchors the defensive line. He anchors the defensive line. And
Yeah.
a mini Hugh is injured, and he won't be
Oh,
coming
man.
back till probably mid to probably December. Probably
December. I'm banking on late
realist.
November, like Justin Houston did in 2016. I'm banking on that. That's
I'm
big.
banking on late. I'm banking on December because Andy Reid likes to take that extra game because Chris didn't play in the second game like he wanted to. He played in the third game full time, like his normal rotation.
Absolutely.
Uh, because the conditioning, Andy Reid believes in conditioning. Uh, FAU is essentially a rookie. He's not a rookie, but he's essentially, as far as playtime, he's a rookie.
He's a rookie. Yes.
So you'll probably lose Dana. You'll probably lose Wharton.
Mm-hmm. I wouldn't resign Wharton. I'm sorry.
You wouldn't,
No.
and that's fine. That's fine.
Yeah.
But if you lose those pieces, you lose a lot of depth in your defensive rotation. Granted, you're going to get it back. Like there's people out there that Veach is going to go get. But if you keep Chris, let Sneed walk, that is one of the things. Those are some of the extra questions or extra things that you have to deal with. And Chris Jones does feel like he should be a chief for life. I ain't gonna lie to
Yes.
you. He
Yes.
feels like he should be a chief for life. Sneed the same way, but not really.
Yeah.
Jones been through a lot with the Chiefs, and Sneed has been too, but it's not in the same way. So I feel like Jones should be a Sneed. I mean, should be a chief for life. Just don't sell out to make that happen. If you understand what I'm saying.
Yeah. I'm with you on that. So that's the thing though, man. So if I may for example, I can say this about like Sneed, man, like similar to the defensive front, man, like the secondary is also a group that's facing that potential loss of Sneed, man. And McDuffie looks to be is already shown that he's that promising, versatile guy, man. But we all know what he can do in the slide. He won All Pro, man. I already told. I said it in the Chiefs Focus article of what he could give you. I thought I would expect that if they kept him in his natural corner position on the outside, like you saw at Washington. That's where really people saw him, and it's like he has a potential now, depending on how they use Sneed. I would love for them to put McDuffie on the outside, and if they keep Sneed, keep him on the outside. You talking about what our defense did, especially secondary, you ain't seen nothing yet. As a matter of fact, we should start getting more picks, and we're actually trying to return them for pick sixes if you do that. And um, Sneed has been one of the best corners in the league all year. I mean, allowing just an opposing quarterback rating of 45.2, man. Most opposing quarterbacks didn't even target Sneed, who didn't even allow a touchdown pass in the regular season. And of course, he allowed that against the Bills, and that was it. But had two interceptions. But there are questions at the other positions of the backfield, outside of Sneed and outside of McDuffie and Sneed, Jalen Watson and Williams saw significant time, but the team could use an upgrade, just like I mentioned there, where like Cam Hart could be like that person. But I personally would keep Sneed because of the fact that Sneed has gotten better. His leadership speaks volumes, especially that he's the leader in that defensive back room. And it's almost like if he leaves, of course you expect McDuffie. Actually, Justin Reed, he's still there, but Sneed has been instrumental because he's been there longer. So yeah, that's just my thought about that. But let's just say if Chris had to go, right? Right. And we on that scenario now. If Sneed stays and Chris goes. So this is what I think. You still got to look at a guy who has connections with Joe Cullen from his past, even if he had him for 1 year. And it's Justin Metabuke, who I mentioned in episode 2 as one of the free agents the Chiefs should target. And I'm telling you, man, Metabuke can either play the two gap and he can penetrate and is an exceptional run defender, man. You already know what he does as a pass rusher, a guy who can line up as a nose or the three technique, maybe sometimes five technique. His 13 sacks were more than his career total heading into this year. It led all defensive tackles, even more sacks than Chris Jones. He had 33 quarterback hits, which were tied for third in the league, and his 11 straight games of at least a half a sack tied for the longest streak by a defensive tackle since 1982. G, when the stat was actually first recorded. That speaks volumes, and you got to thank Joe Cullen as the reason why he became that guy, because Cullen is that dude. And
Right.
I think when the Chiefs bring him in, they can do whatever they want to use him. In other words, Metabuke is what Wharton should be. That's just my opinion, man.
I'm with you on that. With Jones leaving,
Hmm.
with that scenario, Snead stays, Jones goes. Jones is over 30, so
Right.
that's the thing. That's a legit thing. Jones is over 30, so that's not Veach's modus operandi to sign guys over 30. It's just not his thing.
Right.
I don't think there's been anybody he's signed over 30 that, to my knowledge, aside from like 1 year deals.
He was about to sign a 30-year-old Earl Thomas before his agent came in and said, "Hey, man, I got a 3-year deal for you from out in Baltimore."
And it was a 2 year deal. It was going to be a 2 year deal, and it was going to be like, it was a little significant, but not super significant as far as cap space is concerned.
Yeah.
Uh, so he probably won't be worth it for the majority of that. Uh, the new contract, Jones wouldn't be
Right.
if he got a brand new contract, because then he'd be 32, 33. But Sneed is younger. Sneed is a cheaper contract than what Chris Jones has would get. And Sneed's projected contract would be what, a 4 year, $65 million contract with the average annual salary of what, 16 million, 16.3 million, something
Yeah.
like that.
Or 16.5, however people want to do it. Yeah.
Yeah, they probably add that little extra on just for whatever. And
Yeah.
then of course you can I'm gonna throw this out there.
Go ahead.
There's a possibility that the owner of the Chiefs, Clark Hunt,
Hmm.
might be willing to shell out more money in guarantees, considering we're not just going for a Super Bowl this year. We're going for not merely football, but sports immortality.
Absolutely. Like I mentioned earlier, man, we could do something that no NFL team has ever done. They'll put us in like up there with the '90s Bulls.
Correct. So if you're talking about that, and you see the strides that the Chiefs have made over the past 5 to 6 to 7 years to just to be relevant, just to be relevant, because we've been relevant ever since Andy Reid put his mark on this team. Period.
Right.
You bring Patrick Mahomes in, even more so. Travis Kelsey started dating Taylor Swift, even more so. But then when we talk about three in a row, no one's ever done it. Joe Montana, nobody. Tom Brady,
Tom
nobody.
Brady's done it.
That puts you in a different realm.
And
And
actually might solidify Patrick as probably the greatest of all time, even over Brady despite the Super Bowl. So
so
he'll represent all the most titles than Michael, but Michael showed you.
if we're looking at it from that aspect, Clark Hunt might be willing to spend a little bit more to keep both. Who knows? And then just pay the cash. Put it for those that don't know what they do is they put it into. Oh man, I'm losing my train of thought. But they take for the bonuses. They take them and put them in perpetuity. Is not the word. I forgot the word, but don't worry about it. They put it aside. The money gets put aside, taken cash, put aside, and put it in. Come on, what's the word? It doesn't matter. But anyway, that gets put aside. Like that's literally cash coming out of the owner's pocket and
Oh yeah,
putting it aside for them. And then when they hit those goals or when they hit those whatever it is that it takes to get those things, then
mhm,
they get paid out. And it also doesn't go against the cap for those that don't know.
right,
So
right,
if there's there is a scenario where we keep both. Okay.
absolutely,
There is a scenario where we keep both, but that takes a lot of cash contributions for the ownership, who's a billionaire. But the MO of billionaires is they're not here to they're here to keep as much money as they can. So
right, right.
um so a top let me look at this. Let me look at it from this aspect.
Right.
We've been a top 10 defense, right?
Yes.
And here's my what's the option? What's the situation if we let them both go? Okay. Let's think about that because that's a possibility. It's a
Right.
possibility we don't really want to entertain, but it's
Right.
still a possibility.
So that's like a
What
plan
is your
C scenario, right? So
yeah, what is your situation on that?
so like I mentioned, like when we talked about Sneed, if Jones stays, Sneed goes, like get Cam Hart, or you want to go after a veteran. There's Stephon Gilmore because Stephon Gilmore, even despite his age, or let's say Patrick Peterson, I think Veach would take a chance because he did take a chance on Darrell Revis, who was 32 years old at the time, but he still showed you some glances of the old school Revis. But it was just that one Marcus Mariota play against the Titans, and we're gonna forget about all that. But other than that, but yes, you want to build through the draft, especially find those options like Metabuke or that's like I mentioned, Gilmore, or a cheaper option like dang, I forgot one of the guys who's a free agent corner as well. Oh, Kenny Moore the second from the Colts. You can bring him
Okay.
in and you push Sneed to the outside, and then you say like Watson get the opportunity, but still need to draft a Cam Hart. An example. That's one of the players I like, man. Like seriously, because of the size, and I feel like he could be like our Richard Sherman if the Chiefs were to look at him. And I wish I should have brought his name up, especially with that aspect of the segment. But there is a part that I do want to that I did want to mention, and I feel like just mentioning those things with those two guys, if they both win, as of the scenario. So yeah, you could see the Chiefs building through the free agency, especially if there's a player they feel like whose impact could replace with the same impact that Chris brought. And it's similar, but it's a different style, but it's similar, right? Like Tyrann Mathieu, the way he came through the locker room and
Yeah.
bring that championship swagger. And then there was Mooney and there Jones,
Yeah.
man. It's like you just got to be that dog. And as long as you just bring a dog in, we're gonna be okay. And he doesn't have to really be a big name person, but you see some potential in certain players. There's didn't nobody know who Tyreek Hill was going to be Tyreek Hill when he first came to the Chiefs. I didn't
Agreed.
even think Tyreek Hill would be that guy. The only thing that made me say, "Oh, he's gonna be that guy," was when he got drafted and everybody was fussing about his controversies back at college. I looked at that speed. I said,
I
"Okay,
looked at it. I looked at his work ethic. Like the man has a relentless work ethic. Like
yeah,
you ain't gonna outwork Tyreek Hill. It just ain't happening.
man, nah, man, straight up."
So,
But I did want
let
to
me,
mention this part before we move on to our next segment. So it's a part where I say what I think should happen if I was in Brett Beek's shoes. I would sign Sneed to a 3-year deal, $48 million, and then I would sign Jones to like a 4-year, 110 or $112 million deal, but it's really a 3-year, 80 to $84 million because that 80 to 84 million is really guaranteed. It's the guarantees, man. And that contract for Jones, or let's just say with Snead, you kind of keep both of them until 2017, hopefully. Maybe Chris a little longer, but
2027.
yeah, 2027. They'll be free
Yeah.
agents as of March of 2027. So, when if they sign those contracts, and of course you're going to have those restructures. And you got to look at it this way, because that way the Chiefs can restructure Mahomes' contract, which has also been in the news as well. But I never thought Pat was the one, but I can see them because and Pat, like, I don't need this much money, man. Like, especially for a cap hit and everything else like that. I'm trying to do whatever I got to do for us to be that dynasty. If Tom was able to do that, I can, and I'm gonna do it better. So it makes it easier to retain Snead. But don't forget, you can restructure Jawan Taylor's contract, and then
I think
also
that's the plan. I really think that's on the agenda.
as absolutely MVS being a cap casualty, and the team saves $12 million. And then when you look at the cap hit from like contracts, the potential cap hits. This is just simulations I do when I look at overthecap.com or Spot Track. Those are the two sites if NFL fans want to look at NFL salary caps or any salary cap in any sports organization. If you give Chris Jones like that 4-year, $112 million deal, let's say his cap hit will be from $8 to $9 million in 2024. That's better than spending the $32 million, franchise tag. Let's just go
Absolutely.
like that. And then let's say Sneed, you give him that 3-year, 48 mil, $7 to $8 million cap hit. And of course, we all know the numbers are going to get bigger in 2025, but they are
Yes.
going to restructure contracts anyway. So that's the game, man. Like Omar from The Wire, all in the game, yo.
That's
So
part of the game. Yep.
part of the game, man. And then when you look at that, that all like adds up to a total of $17 million, and you still have enough to, and you have more leverage to bring back the core players of this championship team, like Drew Tranquil, um, Willie
For him.
Gay, Mike Edwards, and hopefully McCole. And that begins with bringing back Jones and Snead. So
Yes, I agree. I agree. Let's move on to the part of the show where we look at you wanted to look at 2024, 2025 breakout candidates for that year, for this upcoming year.
yes, sir.
Let's go with it.
All right. Well, these are the early breakout candidates, guys. I have a feeling that who will step up going into 2024 to begin the season. First off is number one, Felix Uzama. And as FUA accumulated to the NFL, slowly gained trust from Spags. And in the Super Bowl, he showed that he's finally ready to put it all together. Uh, he even held his own at moments against Trent Williams before Trent McDuffie and I forgot who else put him. Oh, Mike Pennell put Trent Williams on the ground. But FAU, bro, has that
Ooh.
rare physical ability for the position for the Chiefs and the kind of textbook speed and bend around the edge. And that's the number one thing that a defensive end needs: the bend, flexibility. He's flexible to get around that edge, and the teams are looking for that. And the edge rusher position is a position that can take a little time to adjust to, and the Chiefs can still use a solid pass rusher in their rotation. So FAU, especially with Mike Dana being a free agent and also Charles Omenihu probably going to be out on probably until late November or December. So FAU should get opportunities to show he can take that big step in year two.
I am not against that. I actually, I have a lot of questions about FAU.
Right.
I do have a lot of questions because he came in as a raw project, being picked at 32 from last season. However,
Right.
we see what happened with him at K-State. He improved every single year he was
Here.
on the roster. He made plays when he needed plays, and every year he just got better from there. So that's what I expect. And hopefully you're right on this one.
Absolutely.
Let's move on to number 2.
This probably would probably be the most controversial one of this entire one, because there's a good chance he might not be here next season, but I'm banking on him coming back to prove the doubters wrong and also trying to get with the program, and that is none other than Kadarius Toney, everybody. Yes, sir, KT.
Wow.
I'm sorry. I feel like KT, you gotta look at it like this. Since last offseason, KT was expected to be the number one guy on the team. And we all know how that ended up. It's time to face it, everybody. And and Kadarius is nothing against you, G. You one of the reasons why this team made it this far. You still got the skill set. And I'm saying this because I believe in you. He will never be a number one wide receiver on this team. He just
Don't
simply
disagree.
doesn't have the skill set required to be a number one guy. With
Don't
drafting
disagree.
Rasheed Rice this past season, plus with the chance of adding more names through free agency and the draft, there are, new names in the wide receiving core that have higher expectations than that of Kadarius Toney. If the Chiefs want to retain him, and that would benefit him. It would benefit him, especially with the opportunity that you be like the wide receiver 3 with less pressure on the offensive side of the ball, especially when they're going to focus on Rice and Kelsey and Pop and even Mahomes. That opens up for Toney, especially depending on whoever they bring in this upcoming season. That opens up Toney to where everybody's paying attention to the other guys. Dang, we forgot about KT. He is a wide receiver 3 that is best used in the slot, even sometimes in the Z, due to his great acceleration at the line of scrimmage, bro, and great quickness, explosion to create mismatch issues on the inside with the drag and short routes, and he still has good ball tracking skills on those deep passes. You saw that in that Jags game last year, and that's the other thing. The Chiefs didn't use Kadarius enough going deep. They finally did it, but they did it with McCall, and that's why I mentioned combined with Kadarius and McCall going deep. That's what opened up things. They finally did it in the Super Bowl, which is like about time. And Kadarius, he just needs to be aligned off the line of scrimmage to give him more room to operate and get a better release against press, and will likely benefit from being rotated to preserve his energy in place, be like they've been doing all year. I mean, he's just that guy. And this is a contract year for KT. That's why I'm banking on him that he's going to have a breakout year. Like, he's probably
Uh,
going to dominate some aspects of special teams. I think he'll probably get like 500 yards receiving and just 6 touchdowns.
with KT, I don't think we. So here's my thing about KT. The Chiefs had the Chiefs identity last season.
Yeah.
The issue was that they misidentified who it was,
Yes, that you absolutely. You
and
missed
I
about
understand
the wrong guy, man. Like,
we
what? Hey,
all got the wrong guy. We all got the wrong guy
I knew
because
you wasn't
I
the
didn't
wrong guy.
think it was
You was
going
the
to
wrong
be.
guy.
I didn't think it was going to be Rashid anyway. I just didn't think it because there's 2 guys that were able to get 1,000-yard receivers being rookies under Andy Reid's system, and I
Mhm.
didn't know if Rashid was that guy. Now I don't think Rashid got 1,000 yards this season,
Nah, he was
but
short.
he was short by just a little bit, and that's
Like
because
35 yards, bro. I was like, oh man.
Andy and them again misidentified who the 1,000-yard receiver was on this team. It
Right.
was not Kadarius Toney. It was Rashid Rice. So with that being said,
Mhm.
knowing the role is most is the biggest part of this. Knowing the role, like they say in wrestling, knowing your role and then shutting your mouth.
Know
That,
your
that
role. The
you
shut
got to
your
know your
mouth
role
on it.
first, and knowing your role first. So now that we got a number 1, and you possibly draft a number 2,
Right.
Darius could be a number 3, number 4 even, or even be a specialty guy. And
Yeah.
that's okay. That's enough for me to keep him and say, hey, breakout season is possible. Let's move on to the next one.
All right. Now, Shamari Connor, man, this is my guy. There's deep concern about the safety and cornerback spot in Chiefs Kingdom. It has lessened with the apparent rise of Shamari Connor. second-year player from Virginia Tech who provides depth and perhaps will start ahead of either Brian Cook, who's recovering from his ankle injury he suffered in Week 13 at Green Bay, or replace L'Jarius if he isn't resigned by moving All-Pro corner McDuffie, my guy, on the outside finally and playing while Connor plays the slot full time. Connor could play safety, nickel, or some outside corner, and he's made only 7 starts last season as a rookie and was mostly a plug-in guy. Now he could be a solid starter for the Chiefs and be a ball hawk. He had a pick in the regular season that one against Josh Allen against the Buffalo Bills and finished with an 81.9 passer rating allowed. That's an elite cornerback number, especially for a rookie. And he's a slot guy and a safety. That's big time. And he also dominated throughout the playoffs too. Like he was one of Pro Football Focus's highest graded defenders of the postseason. So that's one of the reasons why I believe that Shamari he's going to step up. Depending also what they do with Mike Edwards if he comes back, you expect him to dominate. Whether especially if he's going to be like that Tyrann Mathieu guy, where Tyrann played the safety and he dropped down into the slot or in the box.
Absolutely. Like he's one of the reasons that I actually believe that you have the opportunity to allow Sneed to go
Yeah,
and keep Jones. But I do think Chamari can be that guy. I do think he is polished enough. I mean, it's going to take some more game time decisions to be in there for him to, get acclimated to the system and all that. But he did well last year. He did very well last year. Only reason I say that is because it's a difference between starting and not starting. There is a difference. But I do think he is a viable option to be a breakout candidate for next year. Let's move on to our next one.
all right. And it's our guy, the freak, man, the freak himself, Leo Chenal, man. Leo, was drafted by us in the third round of the last draft, and since the team has yet to decide if they will re-sign Willie Gay or Drew Tranquil, there's a good chance that his role increases this season. The former Wisconsin Badger appeared in all 17 games in year two, racking up 65 tackles, 40 solo, 3 sacks, 1 pass deflection. In year three, Chenal should be able to continue to enhance the Chiefs' pass rush with his freaky athleticism, bro. It is worth noting that at 6'3", 250 pounds, and the guy who runs a 5'4" like flat is crazy. Chenal is only a situational pass rusher, like the Bruce Irvins, and on occasions if the Chiefs were willing to work with him on that, kind of like Micah Parsons. You saw Micah Parsons being in the box as a linebacker, then being that 2 down speedy off the ball linebacker, edge rusher type guy. At strong side though, Chenal has the size what the Chiefs very much covered, being at 250 and 6'3". He showed on tape his ability to take on the blocks, avoid blocks, and set the edge at times. And the Chiefs still have Nick Bolton at the inside linebacker, but the lack of depth will require Chenal to step up his game.
I do not disagree. I actually did not like the pick at first. I did not like the Chenal pickup because I thought he was raw. I just thought he was very, very raw. And I didn't know what the potential I saw until I saw him play. And then
Yeah.
I realized like he is a heat seeking missile. He is just a heat seeking missile. He was one of the guys who I thought, if I'm not mistaken, he stepped up in the Super Bowl. And
Oh
then
yeah.
I also said I
He played
I
more
also
than Tranquil, bro.
and I think that was on purpose because Drew Tranquil was making noise throughout the playoffs, and I think they did
Yeah.
that to throw off the 49ers, which it worked, I believe. But like Josh Allen, I remember talking to JP about making sure that we have him in there and put a red dot on Josh Allen to stop him from running.
Yeah.
Likewise with Lamar Jackson, because
That's why.
I think he is a heat-seeking missile. I think he's one of those guys that you could put a red dot on an offensive producer and tell him to make sure he doesn't get this far, and then he'll go do it. I believe he's one of those guys. So I look forward to seeing that.
Yeah, I think Chenal's one of those guys who could really wrestle a bear in real life, bro.
I agree. I
Somebody who's
agree.
climbing on that bus
Hmm.
in the parade last year. I was like, yeah,
He
that's why we
remind
drafted him, bro.
as far as his abilities and the potential as far as just his want to do things, his run through the wall capabilities. I He reminds me of Brian Cushing's for the Texans.
Yeah,
Where,
bro.
he's a crazy dude
Yes,
where he'd be
bro.
willing to he
Brian,
probably smash a helmet on his own head. Like that's just how.
Brian Cushion was that. Oh my gosh,
And
man.
he was a heat seeking missile. He was a heat
I remember
seeking
him
missile.
coming out of USC, man. We also played with Ray
Absolutely.
Luga and them. Yeah, man. I remember.
Absolutely, absolutely. So Leo could be something special in this defense, especially replacing Willie Gay if they let him leave. So let's move on to our last candidate for breakout.
Yes, sir. And this guy the Chiefs just picked up in January of this past season, I think this was a very good pickup because when I saw this guy on tape, I was like, is this really Isaiah Buggs or is that Dontari Poe?
Yeah.
Disguised
I
as a guy named Isaiah Buggs. But anyway, that's what I see in Isaiah Buggs when I see him on tape. He is somebody who's not going to get much buzz going into this upcoming year, but could prove to be a very valuable yet affordable piece in Spags defense, man. He stands at 6'3". Originally, when we got drafted, he was at 280, 290. Now he's at 335 pounds, but he still moves like an edge rusher at 335 pounds. Like, I was like, this guy, why are we not using him in the postseason? You know what I mean? I'm glad we had Pernell, but imagine if you had him and Pernell, where you had, Chris out, or let's say Derek Nottie out to keep
mhm,
extra breath. We'd be like, hey, we cool. As a matter of fact, Chris and them be like, let us just chill for at least 3 more plays, then we come out because Bugs is giving them work. But he has very good movement skills and the ability to play the one technique, 4 down front, or as a 5 technique, especially if it was like 3-4 defense. And we all know the Chiefs incorporate 3-4s into their 4-3 base defense at times, kind of like what the Patriots did, with Belichick and everything.
absolutely.
All 27 games with 16 starts since 2022, had 58 tackles, 3 sacks, 2 deflected passes, and a forced fumble before he was cut by the Lions in the first 2 days of January, which landed him on the Chiefs practice squad 2 days after his release and got a world championship with that. Wow, Dan Campbell. First you release him, then you let the Niners come back, bro. Come on, man. But you still did a great thing for the city of Detroit, man. But it's not how you start, it's how you finish. And
Absolutely.
Bud appeared to be a perfect fit for what the Chiefs are trying to do on the defensive side of the ball. That's just my opinion.
I know he got let go of Detroit, let go in Detroit for something that didn't seem like it was enough to be let go of. But Dan Campbell runs a tight ship up there, and he got released. And once the Chiefs picked him up, I was like, "Ooh, he could be a good run stuffer, like for real." And pair him with some young guys to get them work because he's no spring chicken, but
Mhm.
he's older. But pair him with some young defensive tackles that you plan, like a young defensive tackle that you either plan to draft or UDFA. I think that is a really good idea to bring in. So those are our 5 candidates, breakout candidates for 2024-2025 season.
Yes, sir.
And for that, in the interest of time, we are going to move on to PMAX mock draft. PMAX mock draft, and this season, this time, I told you that I wanted to see. I gave you a challenge for 2 rounds. I gave you a challenge to do 2 rounds, and I wanted to see what you came up with. So, with that being said, take it away.
All right. So we're doing this differently. We're gonna do 2 rounds this time. We've been doing one player round, 132 overall pick for over the last 3 episodes. So today
Mm-hmm.
we're gonna do a little differently, folks. So with the 32nd pick, the Kansas City Chiefs select Keon Coleman, wide receiver from Florida State. This guy has been getting so much buzz. And before this combine has started, especially with his game film, and also if you check the game film of Jordan Travis, who I talked about in the last episode, Keon Coleman is what made Jordan Travis really look good as well, too, man. He is 6'4", 215 pounds. Chiefs have a nice group of receivers, but they lack that traditional X wide receiver on the end who could take the top off of the defense. It could be that key guy in the red zone opposite Rasheed Rice. That issue is that issue is solved with the pick of Keon. He could be the best go up and get the ball football wide receiver the Chiefs have had since Dwayne Bowe. And Coleman is special at tracking the ball, and I enjoy how physical he could be against defensive backs. And his best trait is his ability to be a deep threat and winning at the catch point. Coleman opposite Rice would give the Chiefs one of the best young wide receiver tandems in the league. And when I look at Keon Coleman, the way he plays, he gives me AJ Green vibes.
I like the idea of Keon Coleman. I looked at his tape when you suggested him. I looked at his tape and this dude can be a specimen. Um, I do like the way he gets into space. I like the way, like you said, he goes up and gets the ball. Um, I enjoyed looking at his tape. Uh, I do wonder. I do wonder sometimes how he will be when it comes to him taking over Rashee Rice's position.
Right.
Because I do think he could challenge Rashee Rice to be the number one receiver, especially if he's a quick learner. Now I don't think that's a bad. Let me make that clear. I do not think that's a bad thing. I
Mm-hmm.
think it's a really good thing that he would challenge Rashee for that number one spot. But I also don't want to discourage Rashee from being the guy that he could be called to be. So with that being said, um, I like the pick, man. I really like the pick. I'm worried. I don't know if he'll fall to 32.
Right.
That's why we keep doing different mock drafts. That's the whole reason we do
They're
them.
going to change up every week, especially
Everything changes from week.
not coming this past week. Oh, yeah. They definitely
Yeah,
going to
yeah, everything changes from week to week all the time. So I'm pretty sure Keon Coleman is not going to be um, falling to 32 come April, whatever the draft is, because I think he's that good. I think he's that good.
Right, right.
Let's move on to the second pick.
All right. And then after the Keon Coleman pick with the 64th overall pick in the 2024 NFL draft, the Chiefs select Braylon Trice, edge rusher from University of Washington. The Chiefs could upgrade several positions in round two, but Washington's Braylon Trice seems to be a consensus first round talent. I think they look to upgrade their defensive front in round two with a player who had a big part of his team's run to the college football playoff championship game. Trice had 80 pressures this past season for the Huskies, including 7 sacks in the team's run to the college football playoff championship game. Stands at 6'4, 275 pounds with enough strength to overpower opponents, who is a player that could pair very well with Carl Loftus at FAU and create a strong trio. And then when you bring a Montague back, make a very strong quadruple edge team. So
You have a lot going into this when you talk about an edge rusher. You talk about one offensive player, one defensive player, which I do really enjoy that part of it.
right,
Um, and I will say, it's when you have a legendary defense or you have a historic defense like we had last season, it's difficult to do that year to year. And being able to get a guy like Braylon, I'm sorry, blah, Braylon Trice is an idea that maybe you won't be as top heavy as you were. Like you might not be that this year because he's raw. You know, he's still got his young tendencies. But with a guy with a positional coach on the defensive line, like what's the gentleman's name? You know
on the
who I'm
defensive
talking
line.
about. Yes, the coach's defensive line.
Oh, Joe Cullen.
Joe Cullen, with a mind like Joe Cullen, you can actually get him up to speed a lot quicker than you would had you not had a Joe Cullen. And Joe Cullen has been signed to an extension for all those that know. So has Spags. Spags has been signed to
Oh,
an extension
baby.
as well. So I think that this is I think the Braylon Trice, it has there's some times where he over pursues and he exudes more, he does more energy, he uses more energy to make up bad decisions that he could have maybe where he could have maybe cut instead of spin or certain things like that. A little bit of over pursuit, but I think those are things that you can work on. Those are things that are easily worked on, and with a guy like Joe Cullen, yeah, they'll definitely get worked on.
Absolutely, absolutely.
So
And to speak on that
I
point,
do like this. I do like this mock draft.
appreciate that, man. And to speak to your point about Trice, and also we mentioned earlier about Kadarius, man. Just this past week, I just watched Carter High. This is my first time actually watching that. It dealt with Carter High School, Dallas Carter
Yeah,
High School, and that team in '88 who played against the team from Friday Night Lights, Permian Odessa. You know how Hollywoodized Friday Night Lights, but Friday Night Lights is still my favorite football movie of all time. Even that ending was still amazing, even though it wasn't real. I watched Carter High, and this time Charles Dutton playing Coach James, who was known to have the lollipop for his team. Like when he was the coach of the team, he did say a thing like, "Guys, why did we really tie in that game? We should have won that game, but we tied." It's because no, it wasn't just the team was better than us or they were just as good as us. It's because of the decisions we made. Like if Kadarius was like those guys running because he was doing high head stuff like those guys were doing in the series, Coach James say, like you, Kadarius, against the Bills, where you thought it was a smooth idea to land up on the line, and we had been coaching and talking about how to line up properly, and you still made that decision. It's the decisions you make. And those players should always know that, especially if they want to become those better players. Don't overthink things. As a matter of fact,
don't overthink it.
don't ever overthink it. Like when you're in that position to, especially like you're working with Patrick Mahomes or you're working with Chris Jones or any of these defensive players, like guys even on the Chiefs who you still think of as one of the best at their positions, not just on the team, but in the league. You should take that as an honor and a privilege and don't blow it just with this mindset, just like those kids who try to attack Cam Newton over some stupid stuff, man. These youngsters is out of control. I just have to say that there, man. But yeah, that's the point I was making there too, because I feel like that's also been speaking to me too, because I've always had those hot headed moments too growing up, especially when I was playing the game, and you know, you're trying to make a name for yourself, and trying to prove that, yeah, like you're trying to prove something to somebody, and kind of learn, I have to fight to do that sometimes.
Absolutely. Well, that concludes this episode of the War Room with PMAC.
Yes, sir.
Staying or going. And again, we appreciate everybody for listening. Please stay tuned. We'll also, this is again, make sure that you check this out on the podcast page. It's going to be under the Chiefs Focus umbrella.
Yes, sir.
Don't go searching for War Room. Go searching for Chiefs Focus,
Chiefs
and
focus.
then our episodes will be under that, and it'll be labeled as War Room with PMAC. And this episode is called Staying or Going. And again, we thank you for listening, and signing off for PMAC and my I am you. That's the letter, not the word. And that is it for us. We are out. Deuces.